Welcome to Inspire, Heal and Empower. I am your host for today. My name is Jackie Tam. I'm a life and mindset coach. I'm a solution-focused hypnotherapist, and I am the Amazon best-selling author of Inspire, Heal and Empower. But I am a mental health advocate, and I help you to step into who you truly are. I tell my clients and anybody that I work with to become an authority on yourself, because self-knowledge is self-empowerment. And so today we have an inspiring individual with us, a wonderful lady who I am so excited to talk to. Clare Copas is a data protection practitioner and founder of MonClare Data Protection Consultancy, based in Dundalk, County Louth. For much of her career, Clare worked in the insurance sector as a fraudulent claims investigator. It was during this period she was a witness to a serious data breach, which had significant impacts for a previous employer and several employees. This incident served as a catalyst and change of career path for Clare. And now, with a passion for data protection and for privacy of information in the working environment, MonClare Data Protection Consultancy was established in 2016. The focus of MonClare is to educate businesses, organizations, and all who process personal information on the critical role that privacy management has in the business, particularly since the implementation of the EU Data Protection Regulation on the 25th of May, 18. Clare works closely with the small, medium enterprises sector and organizations by providing a diverse range of individual services and consultations, training, webinars, and authoring of policies and procedures for training courses. Clare would be delighted to provide you with support and guidance, and to your business or organization on GDPR compliance journey. And so it is with that I welcome Clare. Hi, Clare.
Hi, Jackie. Oh my goodness, what an introduction. Thank you so much. I'm sitting wondering, who is she talking about?
Well, Clare, we're speaking about you, and I have to say that I'm so happy that you came here today to have this conversation with me and to share with you a little story. Because as I read your bio out, it brought me back to that day when I first heard a little bit about that story, that catalyst that really moved you to a completely different career path. And I was in awe that day as I sat around that table with you and you shared your story to an entire room. And I think it was way back then that I said to you that one day, would you come on and speak with me? And so I'm thrilled that you're here today to do that.
Well, I'm privileged to be here, Jackie. Thank you. And, to share my story yeah.
So Clare, talk to me and tell me about that time, the catalyst that moved you passionately into the area of GDPR.
Yeah. Well, Jackie, what I have to say to you, I'm Dundalk born and bred, but I spent much of my working life in the UK, and as you've described, I worked in the insurance sector for many years, and the catalyst incident occurred in 2013. So in July 2013, I was happily employed as a fraudulent claims investigator with an insurance company in Surrey in the UK. I had been an employee for 12 years, loved my job. I lived 5 minutes from the office, fell out of bed 8:30 in the morning, and I was at my desk at 9 o'clock. In summer evenings, I left the office at 5 o'clock and I was on the tennis court at 5:30. My social life, was very part of the area integral. And to all intents and purposes, I thought I would be driving that same journey to work every day until I retired. But however, fate steps in, when you least expect. And I think it was about the 6th, 7th of July, 2013. It was a Friday morning. Lovely summer was just bedding down, and I was in my car driving to work, thinking what my plans were for the weekend. And I bought cakes into the office on the Friday morning, because I'd had health issues in the preceding weeks, and I'd had the result of a health scan the night before, which was all positive. So I was on cloud 9. And I went into work, sat at my desk. I was middle management role in this particular company. And I was sitting having my cup of tea and my donut when I got a call to come down to HR department. And that's when it all changed. And cut a long story short, I walked into the HR office, and the HR manager, who I considered to be a friend, handed me an A4 sized envelope, and my immediate line manager was also in the room, and I was asked to open the envelope and read what was inside, and everything just went into a blur, because all I saw was an allegation of breaching the UK Data Protection Act. The next half hour just is a blur. Essentially, I was escorted off the premises. I drove home. How I didn't crash my car, I don't know. So that was the start of a very harrowing nightmare. Now, back in 2013, I knew absolutely nothing about data protection. I was on the road investigating insurance claims. In the 12 years that I had been in the company, data protection never featured anywhere. So suddenly to have this allegation, thrown at me, it came from nowhere. So things ensued. I was taken down the disciplinary route. I was immediately suspended from my job. Initially, I was fighting for my career, my reputation, for my life, for my sanity. And I was fighting against a force. So within probably 2 or 3 months, it became apparent that I couldn't do this alone. So I realized that I needed to educate myself thoroughly, on data protection, what these allegations were all about. And once I got my head around and I realized what the scenario was, that effectively there was a data breach in the department, but for whatever reason, I was the scapegoat. So it ended up that I needed support, legal support. And with that legal support quietly guiding me behind the scenes, what started off, it started off and ended as a harrowing journey. But from start to finish, it was 9 months in its entirety. As I say, not only was I taken down, several disciplinary meetings, I was told that I had to go to these meetings on my own, no support initially. Then I was also informed by my ex-employer that I personally had been reported to the UK Data Protection Regulator. So in addition to being suspended from a job that I thought I'd be there for till retirement, I started to receive correspondence from the regulator reinforcing the allegation that it had been reported to them that I had breached, I think it was Section 4 of the UK Data Protection Act. And until such time as they met with me, that I was under threat of a criminal prosecution. So not only was I fighting for my career, my reputation, my life at that point in time was falling apart, because with the thought of having a criminal prosecution hanging against me, my life was finished. I would never be able to work again. I'd never be able to travel again. You know, and my reputation was totally sullied. So, you know, in times of distress, you know, you get the adrenaline pumping, and because in my working career, it was a job I loved. You know, I devoted 12, 14 hours of my day to claim investigation. Now I was channeling this into survival mode, and I knew that I was totally innocent of all these allegations, and I, through the various disciplinary meetings, trying to rationalize where this was all coming from. In the 12 years I've been with business, I'd always got excellent appraisals, but suddenly I was getting a swathe of false allegations. So it got to the stage where, I kind of thought, I'm going to have to play, not dirty, but, my ex-employer was kind of hanging me out to dry. But as I say, I was fighting for my life here. So probably at this point in time, I had a fair understanding of the Data Protection Act. I understood the situation that I was in. But it appeared to me at that stage as well that I didn't have any knowledge of data protection. But when I did an holistic overview, I thought, of things that had happened in the business over the 12 years, it was very evident to me that the business had no clue of their data protection obligations to the business itself and to their employees. So, as I say, it took 9 months for the whole situation, to resolve. It was probably about 6 months into the nightmare that I was eventually interviewed by representatives of the UK Regulator's Office, and that at that point in time was the worst day of my life. Because if you can envisage, you're going to neutral territory, which was a conference room in a hotel. And I was directed into this room. There was like a boardroom table. There were 3 strangers sat in front of me. There were cameras. I think there were about 4 or 5 cameras. I was made aware. To me at the time, it was a scene like for, I don't know if you remember the old UK drama, The Bill, where you're sitting in front of the detective.
Yes.
And essentially under oath, and anything that you say will be,
In a court of law, yeah.
And I was shaking. I was really, I thought I was going to jail, because these people, had it in their power, to serve me with a criminal prosecution, worst case scenario, 6 or 9 months in jail, and monetary fines. So the meeting lasted about an hour and a half, and it was like a good cop, bad cop scenario, and like a moderator, neutral, and it was like just being put through a ringer, mentally. And I was asked to put forth my case against the allegation that was put against me. Why I thought it was, I was asked to give a description, of the data protection practices, of the business. So after about an hour and a half of interrogation, I was told that it would be 2 months before I would have the ruling. And at that point in time, I just burst into tears because I'd already had 6 months, of a nightmare, whereas my life was just falling apart. At the same point in time, I had been in a long-term relationship, and through the stress of the whole scenario, that fell apart. So every aspect of my life was just, crumbling. So again, I drove home from that meeting, and I think the meeting was on a Friday morning. And my solicitor had sat beside me, at the meeting, but he had told me in advance that he was going to be silent throughout the meeting, unless, I prejudiced myself in any way, which he did. He just sat silent. So I got a phone call 2 days later on a Sunday morning at 11 o'clock from my solicitor to tell me that I had been totally cleared of all the allegations. So it took them 48 hours, to make it. And I just burst into tears. And at the time, my elderly mother had come over to me for a couple of weeks, and it was just one of those. I was just so happy to have had my mum there, because she walked every step of that horrible journey with me, So after that, I took a couple of weeks, and I came up for air, and then let the dust settle. And my decision had already been made that once everything got sorted, that I had been in the UK 27 years at that time. So I saw things happen for a reason. So this was my catalyst, that this was my change in my career path in my life. So after 27 years in the UK, I came back to Ireland, to Dundalk, with the decision, do you know what, I've just been through a horrible experience, and I've learned an awful lot through it, both professionally and personally. And I would not want another person to go through, what I went through, either as an employer, as an employee. So the seeds of MonClare Data Protection Consultancy were born. And I continued, with my data protection studies. I qualified, and MonClare Data Protection Consultancy was born in 2016. And I have the honor of saying that my mum named my business for me. So MonClare to me is my mum's legacy. So since 2016, I have been preaching the gospel according to GDPR, and through my own experience, it has just filled me with a passion that, particularly where I'm based in Dundalk and in the Louth area, that my passion is to work, you know, as you say, I work particularly with SMEs and small organizations to kind of say, look, guys, you know, this is really serious, particularly since GDPR was implemented in 2018. This is my story, you know, this isn't fiction of what might happen or could happen. I'm living proof of what the worst case scenario can be. And let me help you, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, Claire, like what a story around that, around what you've just said. And I noticed throughout as you spoke, the dates, the times of these things that happened, how it was so clearly imprinted in your mind. And as you mentioned, the stress that you were put under in those months, but that your sanity was really put to the test. And yet in
absolutely.
the midst of it, you start at some point, you stop somewhere, because from what you say to me, you're looking back in, and what you're doing is, I've got to teach myself about what's happening here. I've got to understand.
Yeah.
Well, when was, can you remember exactly when that moment was, when you went, I've got to do that?
I think probably the day I was called into the HR office. I drove home, got my laptop out and Googled Data Protection Act, UK Data Protection Act, you know, and particularly, as I say, I think it was Section 4, you know, that was the suggestion, you know, or the allegation. From memory, the allegation was unauthorized disclosure of company personal information, you know, unlawfully. And I'm kind of scratching my head, you know, well, how could I have done this? You know, what opportunity, you know. Now, there was a data breach in the department, and there was unauthorized access to personal information, but it wasn't me, you know. And, you know, as I say, what I'm sharing with you here is just, you know, the tip of the iceberg. You know,
Yes.
there's an awful lot, you know, behind the scenes. But for whatever reason, I was identified as the soft touch or the scapegoat, you know. And but as I say, I'm a strong believer in fate. You know, that you can make all the plans you have in life. You know, you think you're walking on a straight road, but suddenly, you know, there's a curveball thrown at you. You know, you're thrown off kilter. So this was certainly my curveball. And, you know, as I say, I thought I was in the UK for another 20 years, you know, but as I say, I came home, and as I say, no regrets at all, you know. So what was meant to be was meant to be.
Yeah, that's not amazing that you can say that, and that,
Yeah.
you know, from learning about GDPR yourself, you began to grow a passion for it. You really became interested in it, and because you went through that experience yourself of being at the end of being accused of something that you didn't do,
Yeah.
and that you really, you know, you as a GDPR consultant are coming at such a deep level to business, to those who will work with you.
Yeah.
That's what I can get from you. And
Yeah.
when I heard the story initially, I went, wow.
If anybody had said to me 15 years ago, Clare Copas, you're going to have your own consultancy business, you're going to be working in data protection, I would have said, sorry, say that again to me. You know, no way. And as I say, that starting point, data protection, what are you talking about? You know, whereas now, you know, we're kind of thinking, well, actually, you really need to know this stuff, you know, because, and I think, you know, what empowered my passion as well was that by 2015, talk of GDPR coming down the tracks, you know. So, and this was going to be the huge seismic shift that changed the data protection landscape forever. So I kind of think, okay, yeah, well, I need to find out, you know, what this is going to be about. And, you know, GDPR certainly has shaken up data protection, you know, hugely, you know. So whereas pre-GDPR, it was kind of, yeah, ignorance was bliss type of thing. Don't need to bother about that. Yeah. Whereas now it's critical, hugely critical. Yeah.
So someone like you going into a business or into a company is just integral to the business.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the way I liken it, Jackie, it's like GDPR, data protection compliance. It's the health and safety of personal information. And it is something that has to be reviewed very, very regularly. And COVID has had a huge impact on GDPR because with all the new protocols, the remote working, particularly now the hybrid of people in the office, you know, the implications of personal information being compromised, it's the threats are just huge. So it is, as I say, it's just one of those critical things that is embedded into the business culture as health and safety. You know, it's a legal requirement, you know, because, you know, at this stage, business and organizations, they're well aware, you know, it's been well reported on the huge fines and the sanctions. And over the last couple of months, you know, there has been ramping up in the sanctions and fines, and that will continue. So it will, you know.
And would you recommend that every business have a consultant like yourself attached to it?
Well, it depends on the nature of the business. You know, like some business and organizations will have their own, you know, like internal data protection compliance officer or their data protection officer, you know. So for that sort of scenario, that individual, you know, the requirement under GDPR is that they're fully au fait, you know, as to what the business requirements are for GDPR compliance. Now, what I see quite regularly, because, you know, many business in the SME are very, like, you could have a partnership or 2 or 3 person, you know, and there isn't the time allowing for that. For that sort of an organization, yes, yeah.
Okay.
And I have seen some businesses where you know, on particular aspects of GDPR, where I'm going to reference for now, say one of the requirements under GDPR, it's a legal requirement for a business who has a website to have a GDPR compliant privacy policy. Now, I have seen over many occasions whereby businesses might try to template it, you know, but that sort of scenario isn't meeting the GDPR requirements. So my advice would be, yes, to reach out to a professional. Yeah.
Okay. But Claire, I have to say, you know, from listening to you, your story, what you went through, and how you turned it around really, and what you took a very challenging time in your life, and you just took so much learnings from it, and you turned it into a business, and a business that is so important to each and every one of us. That we have somebody like you who's coming to check to make sure that everything is right and correct. And so you're just inspiring, I have to say.
Jack, thank you. As I say, it's because of my personal my experience. It drives me, because I know I keep going back for what I experienced, but also for the business. They've got to, a business owner has to be aware, of their legal obligations, of how they collect and process personal information, because without consumer personal information, client information, you don't have a business. A client or an employee, a consumer, when they're sharing their personal information, it might only be a name, email address, phone number, but that's critical personal data. And I'm trusting that business or organization, that they are going to respect that, and they're going to have adequate security controls to prevent it being compromised in any way, that the people in the business that are processing that data are educated on data protection, what they can and they can't do with that data. And that was a huge loophole in my previous employer in the UK, because in that environment, employees were collecting and processing highly sensitive information without the realization of the critical commodity that they were actually handling, and again critically what they could and they couldn't do with it, because what happened in that environment, an individual accessed a company database for personal purposes and shared that information, and it was the search was picked up in an audit trail by the owner of the database. So, and then the employee says, "Oh, but I didn't know that I couldn't do that," So this is where when I engage with business and organizations, your employees, they're one of your most valuable commodities, but also human error, So you've got to ensure that the employees are educated, on data protection.
So even more reason to have MonClare Data in and working with Clare. That's what I hear.
Well, I'm an advocate for education on the topic, because I wasn't educated. I did not have a clue about data protection, and ignorance is, when I was being under scrutiny by the UK regulator, like, as I say, it was a good cop, bad cop scenario, so would you think that, it was okay to do this, this type of thing? And ignorance is no defense type of thing.
So. I love that you said you educated yourself, and education is power, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
That you knew and you understood then exactly what was going on, where you were going, and then how you then flipped that into what you do today, and that's powerful in itself.
Yeah. And as I say, from opening up that laptop on my kitchen table, from day one, and just be met by various legal jargon and rules and kind of thing, it brought me in deeper, to the thing. Oh yeah. That, as I say, through the process, I was able to sit in front of these disciplinary, and I was, but what about this scenario? And what about that scenario? So, you're making an allegation, I think, but however, what about this scenario? That type of thing.
Yeah, it's similar in a way as you talk, that you nearly self-knowledge is self-empowerment. It's about that piece, isn't it? Know what you're doing, know what you're about, know what's out there, and then you're really in a position to take charge and take power of that, control of that situation.
Yeah.
So Claire, a few closing questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready, Jackie.
Imagine you have transported yourself back into your 10-year-old body, what's the first thing you would do?
Oh my goodness, Jackie, that's an awful long time ago. As a 10-year-old, I have to think. Yeah, back in the day, well, the first thing that's coming into my head is I'd go out and I'd buy the Bunty comic.
I love that. I love that.
Oh, you know, I think it came out every Thursday, you know, and again, it was something like threepence or sixpence. I'm giving away my age here now, but again, you know, there was no social media, you know, at the type of thing, and that was probably one of the highlights of my week. A 10-year-old, I was very fortunate in growing up where I grew up, that I had very, very good school friends. Come home, you know, play in the woods outside school. Again, just simple tag tip, you know. I grew up with 4 brothers, so the boys were always playing marbles out on the green, over and play marbles with boys. Just simple things, you know, like that. Yeah.
I love the memories. I love the memories, and I love as you describe it, and the Bunton book and the marbles. It brings back childhood memories to me too.
Absolutely.
And I can see myself going to the shop getting the quarter sweets or a penny sweets or the satin cushions,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
the Coca-Cola bottles.
Absolutely, or the cough sweets.
Yes. You know, all those memories come rushing, flooding back. Isn't it amazing how our minds work, that we can bring them so quickly back up?
Yeah.
And Claire, tell me, what's the one word you would use to describe yourself?
Oh, I know it probably sounds like a cliche, but I'm loyal.
I love them.
As I say, I have friends, you know, that I grew up with. I still have, and I'm loyal and trust. You know, if somebody, you know, going through a bad time, you know, they kind of share their innermost kind of things with me. Yeah, they're in my heart or they're in my head. They don't go anywhere else. Yeah.
Wonderful, loyal and trust. I just love those words. And if somebody asked you permission to be your understudy or your apprentice, what would you teach them?
If somebody was my apprentice in MonClare Data Protection Consultancy, I would kind of, because what I've tried to embed into MonClare is transparency, and I would try and get the individual, try and share my enthusiasm, you know, for data protection with my apprentice, you know, that this is a wonderful topic, you know, it's so diverse, you know. So I would try and, as I say, encourage and develop a passion for what they do.
And you're already doing that, because your energy is amazing, and I can feel it and hear it as we speak, that, you know, you can feel that passion, you can feel that energy and the excitement around what it is that you do. So for anybody that will become your apprentice, you know, they're going to be blessed with that, to get that from you.
Oh, thank you, Jackie.
And Claire, final question. What is the one life tip you would like to give to our listeners today who have kindly tuned in?
I would say, on the basis of my experience, would be dig deep. to dig deep in the worst case scenario. Horrible things happen, and kind of at the worst possible time, you think your life is falling apart. Your life is falling apart at the time. But I made mention of my mother, who was Manina, who is the Mon of MonClare, and as I say, she walked beside me every step of the way of that experience. And in my darkest moments, my mum would say to me, Claire, this will pass. So I would say, dig deep, and this too will pass. And good comes out of bad. Survival mode. I think survival mode kicks in. Yeah.
Claire, what a wonderful tip to give to the listeners, to dig deep and this too shall pass, to put that at the forefront of their minds, to help them in the challenges that faces them throughout their lives. Claire, you've got to tell people where to get you, where to reach out. Can you give us your website?
Yeah, my website is www.MonClare, MonClare Data Protection Consultancy.com. And my email address is info@MonClare, MonClare dataprotect.com.
Great, Claire. So if anybody listening wants to reach out and get a GDPR consultant that is passionate and knows what she is talking about, you need to go and find Claire at MonClare Data. So Claire, I want to thank you for sharing this stage today with me. And to the listeners, thank you so much for listening. And I look forward to coming back here again. Thank you, everybody. Claire,
Jackie,
thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you.